First-term Senator Ron Johnson of Wisconsin is almost unanimously seen as one of the most vulnerable Republican incumbents in the 2016 cycle. He's expected to face off against Democrat Russ Feingold, the man that he defeated in 2010. And a super PAC supporting Johnson is already running ads trying to scare the bejesus out of the good people of the Badger State.
In dangerous times, the American people deserve the facts. Iran is the #1 state sponsor of terrorism in the world. Iran even played a role in helping the 9/11 killers. And Iran's radical Islamist leaders have made it clear the worst is yet to come. Iran is funding terrorism not just in the Middle East, but in Africa, Asia, South America, and right here in the United States. Some of our leaders, like Ron Johnson, understand that preventing Iran from getting the bomb is essential to our safety. Others, like President Obama, insist on signing a toothless agreement that makes us less safe.
Wow, how about that terrifying footage? Pretty scary because some of it actually comes straight from ISIS propaganda videos. And this is really amazing. Can you believe President Obama actually shaking hands with the president of Iran? Of course, he never did that. That never happened. The two leaders have never met in person. It would be monumental news if they had. The image appears to have been photoshopped from this one on the left of President Obama's greeting India's then Prime Minister in 2011. Different leaders, different countries, different men. When Buzzfeed noticed the picture and contacted the group Restoration PAC, their spokesman responded, I don't know what you're talking about. You're saying that that's a Photoshop? Can you explain what you're talking about? In a follow-up statement to factcheck.org, the PAC explained that the photo's been widely circulated on the internet. And there are no articles claiming it's fake, which is, again, hilarious because if Obama and Rouhani managed to just sneak off to get together for a secret grip and grin, that would really be something. But nevertheless, out of, quote, an abundance of caution, the PAC revised the ad with a more accurate image. So Senator Johnson's allies are a little unclear about the state of U.S.-Iranian relations, but at least their guy doesn't have too much of a role in that realm, like, say, I don't know, serving on the Senate Foreign Relations Committee. Oh, wait, here he was yesterday at the Iran deal hearing, quizzing MIT-educated nuclear physicist Ernest Moniz, the energy secretary, on some, let's just say charitably, pretty fringe theories about the threat of electromagnetic pulse weapons, or EMPs.
An EMP attack, of course, would be conducted by somebody like North Korea or Iran, and it could be conducted from a ship off our coast using a Scud missile. I'm highly concerned.
Well, sir,
as you, Secretary of Energy, not even aware of these recommendations that were made public in 2008.
Joining me now, Ruth Conniff, a Wisconsin native and editor-in-chief of the Progressive magazine. That moment yesterday in the hearing where this nuclear physicist and the person of Ernest Moniz basically has to indulge the, frankly, really fringy, paranoid theories of EMP weaponry and kind of pretend that the gentleman from Wisconsin maybe has a point and he'll look into it. I mean, that was something.
Oh, my God. You know, I mean, I actually asked a few people I know about what they think, you know, we need to say about Ron Johnson, and the mind reels because every time our senator's in the news, it's something like this. You know, it's just unbelievable. And then he went on and told the energy secretary that he would gather some sources for him, some stuff he'd read on the internet, and send it to him so he could fill him in on this little-known technology.
Well, hopefully it's not coming from the same place that has photoshopped together Rouhani and the president. Ron Johnson strikes me as someone who was had the good fortune of running in the right year when he won in 2010. Is that a fair thing to say about him?
Absolutely. I mean, it was a tidal wave backlash election. The Tea Party was really strong. Ron Johnson is the Tea Partyist of the Tea Partiers. And, you know, he defeated somebody who is a really brilliant lawyer. And if you watch the debates, which 4 people in Wisconsin did, you saw a really brilliant man debating a man who gets his information on the internet. And it was horrifying when Johnson won, and I don't think he can do it again. I mean, I think that the people of Wisconsin, first of all, haven't seen him. He's not big on constituent service, big on showing up for anything. When he does show up, it's in right-wing media appearances to say things like the children of Milwaukee are in inner-city schools are idiots, or that college debt's not a problem because college is really easy and fun, and he paid for his own college. That was when tuition at the University of Minnesota was about $600 a year. You know, he says these things. He says global climate change is caused by sunspots. He doesn't believe in evolution. He's one of a few votes against human trafficking and the Violence Against Women Act. you know, the list goes on and on and on with Ron Johnson. He's worse on science. I mean, when he gets to science is when you really cringe. But every time there's a story about him, it's something like this. And I think, you know, he can't last in a non-backlash year.
Well, first of all, you mentioned we should talk about this comment, inner city school children idiots. I actually think it was a offensive comment because it was lampooning of liberals, but he wasn't actually saying inner city school kids are idiots. It was an interview in which he was speaking supposedly in the voice of liberals who have consigned inner city school children to a lifetime of poor education and cast them off as idiots. Still offensive, just offensive to another constituency.
Right. Well, I mean, the real importance of that statement is that Ron Johnson, an Ayn Rand acolyte who bought a giant statue of Atlas Shrugged and put it in Oshkosh so everybody could share his beliefs, is a huge privatization fan. And he believes that anything the government does, whether it's regulation or spending money on public schools, is bad, and the private market does everything better. So he's derisive of liberals who send their kids to private school, and his point is that inner city kids in Milwaukee should also have the opportunity to go to voucher schools. The problem is the voucher schools in Milwaukee are a bunch of fly-by-night operations, and really the results of those schools have been abysmal. The kids don't do as well as they do in the regular public schools, and there are some really terrible schools. I've visited them, storefront operations where kids are learning curriculum based on the Bob Jones theory of, you know, there's no such thing as evolution, where it's, you know, it's really shocking to see the conditions that some of these kids are in and to call this public education. So that's what Johnson is putting forward. He's a huge defender of private business. It's why before he was in the Senate, he testified against an extension of the statute of limitations on child sexual abuse, on lawsuits against clerics, because he gave this really impassioned defense of private businesses and how they would be harmed by lawsuits from abused children. I mean, it's a really extreme ideology that's anti-public sector, anti-public good.
There's a wide expectation Russ Feingold is going to run against Ron Johnson for the seat that he lost to Ron Johnson. What do you think his odds are?
Of winning?
Yes.
I think Feingold has an excellent chance of winning. I think running in a presidential election year in Wisconsin, which despite our recent history and the enormously divisive governor that we have, is still a blue state. And I think that Johnson just hasn't done himself any good and is not doing well in the polls and has this very tiny constituency of, you know, really hard right Ayn Rand fans.
I can't believe the Atlas Shrugged and Oshkosh detail. That's a pretty good one. Thank you, Ruth Conniff.
Great to be with you, Chris.
All right, up next, a big endorsement.